business to new insane revenue levels doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's all about the right strategy, team, efficiencies, and confidence. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution podcast. With over 1 million downloads, it's the go-to business podcast dedicated to business owners who want to evolve out of operating in the day-to-day and make their dreams come true. I'm your host, Annette Walter, and I'm so happy you are here. As a former banker, I have now been an entrepreneur for over 15 years and have started, grown, acquired, and sold over 20 multi-million-dollar companies to date. Together, you and I will strengthen your existing business, build your dream team and process, grow your wealth and legacy, all while surrounding you with a community of rockstar entrepreneurs just like yourself. Are you ready to evolve? Let's get started. Hi there. Welcome to today's episode. I am really excited today to introduce you to Kristen Denzer. She is the CEO and founder of Tierra Encantada. And she is actually one of the recent honorees of the Women Presidents Organization 2021 fastest growing women-owned companies. Tierra Encantada was founded in 2013, and it is the leader in Spanish immersion early education. I love hearing more about Kristen's concept here and also her history of what led her to the point of starting this business, which is a premier daycare and preschool program that is just amazing. I mean, she's offering like fresh cooked organic meals and all of this just amazing education, all environmentally friendly, and she has a wonderful operation that is growing and scaling. You're going to love her story. I know you're going to learn so much from her and what she's doing. I particularly want you to listen for the middle to the end as she explains her investing in commercial real estate and what her current portfolio includes and where that's going. Because what we talk a lot about here on this podcast is your wealth and your legacy and continuing to be a curious entrepreneur so that you don't get bored and you keep evolving. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you leave a rating and hit subscribe. That's the little plus button in the top right-hand corner if you are listening today on Apple. And if you haven't had time to schedule some time with me, that is totally on me. I want to hear about your business. So let's carve out some time for a 20-minute breakthrough session to learn more, to make a mini map for you and your business, and make sure you are getting everything you need and making the right moves in your business at the right time with the right resources. I am so happy you are here. Enjoy today's episode with Kristen and keep evolving, entrepreneur. I am so proud of you. Welcome, Kristen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am great. I love your background. It's beautiful. Beautiful woodwork there. We are joined today by Kristen Denzer, who is the founder and CEO of Tierra Encantada. And you have such a wonderful story. Congratulations on your most recent win, being recognized as WPO's fastest 50 woman-owned and led companies. How was that moment? How did that feel for you?
It was great. You know, it was really inspiring, though, to see the women that had the companies in the top 5 and just how much they've accomplished in such a short time.
It's so true. It's so true. So let's start the story from really wherever you want to begin. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the origin of the company.
Sure. So I grew up in kind of like an entrepreneurial family, not my parents, but my grandparents. My grandpa started a gas station, when he was in his 20s. And I remember working at it, like not working officially, but, emptying the vending machine, the little jobs that, they give little kids. And remember being able to be with them a lot, like during the day when I'm sick, because they had that flexibility of schedule. And so I think being an entrepreneur has something that has always been at the back of my mind, I guess, in a sense, but I didn't really know what that meant. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I didn't really know what that meant in a practical sense. And so when I graduated from college, got my first job, I ended up doing a little bit of consulting. And so that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And so I was able to help some different nonprofits with, fundraising, getting their, 501c3, really hiring their first employees, and enjoyed that ability to kind of like work for myself.
Yes.
So then the first company I started was with a friend from high school. It was an event rental company. So like weddings, special events. So, ceiling draping, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And that company, I didn't need any sort of, like finance or anything for. We kind of just bootstrapped it, built it. And then I bought her out a couple of years in and really grew it to about 2016, where it was serving a little over 500 events a year. So it was really large. And then during that time, started another company, which was a dog daycare. And again, grew that. And then was still doing consulting and was doing all three really while doing my master's and then going back for a doctorate, and had kids, and when I had kids, juggling obviously needed childcare.
Right.
And we moved to the east side of the Twin Cities. And on the east side of the Twin Cities, there wasn't a lot of options, good options. There were some great ones, but I was driving a long ways for childcare because I wanted something that was more than just a babysitter. If I was going to spend all this money, like a mortgage payment basically,
Right.
and have this time away from them, I wanted it to be something that I felt was, maybe worth that time, worth that money, versus just somebody that's, watching TV with them.
Right.
So having already started other businesses, you kind of think, oh, I can do this. You start to think,
I love it.
Well, and you start to think you're almost a little like, I don't want to say invincible, like, oh, I can do anything, which I believe people can if you really, do whatever you need to. But got in a little over my head, I'll admit, with that one, because starting a daycare was a lot more than anything I'd done before. Very regulated, a lot more capital. I first loan and hadn't gotten any financing or anything, so got an SBA loan.
Right.
And every business I had started until that point, it had been cash flowing from day one. And so with the daycare, I was like, oh, maybe a month or two it'll take. So I only got like $20,000 of working capital, which was not enough.
Right.
Blew through it in the first month. We had more staff than we had kids the day we opened.
Right.
So
give me like a date stamp here. What year is this?
So this is 2013.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. And so that first year was super stressful. Like for the first time in my life, I actually had the thought of like, am I going to have to like declare bankruptcy or something? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, every dime I was making from my other businesses, I was like pouring into this, like literally everything I had. And it was very stressful. No, you can't get a loan. Like once you open and you aren't doing good, nobody's going to give you more money, And so I opened like multiple credit cards, maxed them out just to make that first year work. And fortunately, it did eventually. It took about a year. And then I was able to, first pay back all my like credit cards, pay them off. I'm very like debt adverse, pay off all the credit cards, and then started making money. And so learned a lot of how to do things differently with, choosing a location, marketing, just a lot of different aspects of it. And took what I learned and then opened another one. And so 2016 was when I opened my second one. And that was a big year because I got divorced. I sold, my half of the dog daycare, sold and closed down the event business, stopped consulting. So I really kind of went all in on Tierra at that point, and used the money from the sale of the other businesses to buy a building for my second location.
Awesome.
And used everything I learned really. And that one opened profitable from day one. We were on wait lists for some of the different ages within months of opening, and haven't stopped from there opening really. I mean, 2018, bought another building and opened another one. 2019, bought another building and opened another one. 2020 was my first new construction. So bought 3 lots, huge 22,000 square foot building that I bought the land and built and owned. And that one opened in the middle of the pandemic. So, definitely a lot of like, oh, what's going to happen here with this one? But fortunately, we were able to pivot with the pandemic too, because a lot of schools closed and did distance learning. And a lot of parents, most parents still had to work. And we have a lot of families where, doctors, nurses, where they were really needed. And so we created a distance learning support classroom, multiple actually, because we had so much interest, where we set it up so kids could do their school in our classroom, and our teachers would help make sure that the kids got their homework done. They would supplement just that screen time with real hands-on stuff. And that way, when their parents got done with work, they could actually enjoy that time with their kids versus like just focus on homework and stuff.
Right.
And so that helped a ton. And Hiawatha was able to open pretty successfully because of that. And so and then we launched franchising as well right before the pandemic. So not the best timing, of course, but we had our first franchisee open in July, which was super exciting, and she's doing great. And so we are opening 5 more so far planned for 2022.
Awesome.
And so we're really excited about our growth.
That's an amazing story. I love how you just like really walked us through the timeline. Like the visual that I had was just like awesome. So let me rewind here. What clicked in year 1? Okay. So when you had the credit card debt, you had those moments like sleepless nights, right? The anxiety of waking up and all of that kind of stuff, right? I'm sure. What clicked, or how did you keep on going? What was it?
I think my mindset is, I am going to do whatever I need to do to make something successful, basically. So when I started that, I didn't like hire consultants to help. I didn't even hire a general contractor. I was the general contractor for several of my projects. I don't have a background in that. I don't have a background in any of the stuff that this is, but I will spend the time I need to learn. I will call up the city and have them walk me through where it says in building code that I need to do something. I'll, call the licensor and have them point me to statute where it says something so that I understand why it says that and what I need to do. And so I just really was very committed making sure it worked. And so, whether that meant like I was there, helping fill in for the director for months while she's on maternity leave, researching all the different marketing, trying every marketing method I could think of, testing different things. And so I was very committed. And that's really been my mindset in general, is like, if I'm going to do something, then I'm going to be all in. I'm going to do it until I make sure that it does what it's successful. It does what I expect it to.
I love it. And we talk so much about mindset, and people, some people are really into it. Some people are kind of like, that's a little too woo-woo for me, but it really works. And you have to, like you said, committed. You have to be so committed. So we have a lot of people in the audience, Kristen, that either own franchises or they are considering it. Okay. So walk us through and give us some insight as to the moment that you knew that, and then what those kind of first steps look like for somebody who out there is considering taking their business or their product to the franchise model.
Yeah. So I had been approached by people wanting to franchise prior to deciding, and I was pretty hesitant. I didn't franchise until maybe a year and a half, 2 years after I first was asked by somebody. And part of it was I just am so passionate about what Tierra is. There's other Spanish immersion daycares, not a ton, but there's others.
Right.
But the model, there's a couple things that just really make us special that I was worried about being diluted. And one is the curriculum. We really incorporate diversity in the sense of, it's not just something like we put on the wall like some companies do. our curriculum, like in our classrooms, you'll see books that have, say, 2 moms or 2 dads,
Right.
because we have kids that have that in their family. And I think it's so important for kids to see that in their environment. And most curriculum and early childhood education right now that's out is, 20 years old, it's old.
Right.
And so it shows a very, homogenous look of what a family looks like, and kids
Right.
don't often get to see themselves in that. And so that, and then also how we treat our staff. Daycare historically has been the model of almost like fast food in the sense, it's like hourly, minimum wage, definitely no sort of career type benefits. And that just isn't something that I would feel good about personally. I want my staff to have a career, and I want them to stay, because these are people that are caring for the most important thing in people's lives. They shouldn't be getting the bare minimum. They're keeping and, fostering a child's development. And so when I started it, I did a lot of things that even today, like a lot of companies don't do. All of my staff have always been full-time. And so we don't cut staff because we have less kids. Never, we don't do that, because that gives people unreliable income. And then we've offered benefits, medical, dental, vision. I want to say it's like only 15% of childcare programs in the country offer that.
Wow.
And then even less offer a 401k with match. And so it's just, we have those benefits that make it a career, in addition to, paid parental leave for both mothers and fathers, paid time off, paid holidays. And so those were things that were very important to me. And I was worried about somebody franchising and then, like diluting the brand or not carrying through the vision. So I had been approached by an equity firm that had wanted to like fund, a national growth kind of partner with that I had considered. And I just ended up not wanting to do that route. And my legal team that I use, actually, the partners, one is a franchisor and one is a franchisee. And so they talking to me a lot about it, were able to kind of give me some good insight into how you can control things to make sure that your brand really stays true to what your vision is and carries on when other people are owning it and doing it. And so after talking to them, that helped me feel a little bit better about, partnering with franchisees to do that. And then the other big thing is just wanting to grow. There's right now in the sector, in the industry as a whole, there's some really large major players. But if you look at the top 10 providers, none of them are language immersion, or to be honest, anything that really you could, as like maybe a layperson not familiar with the sector, could differentiate. If you look at some of the big ones, what is the difference? Really, how it looks maybe at the center, but there isn't something that makes them really special or unique. Whereas for us, we've got the meal program. So, fresh cooked organic meals like quinoa with avocado, shrimp jollof rice, like things like that. And then we have the curriculum, and then we have the language immersion. And so we have all these things that really represent what families want.
Right.
And my concern is that one of the big providers might come in and basically have, a lot of funding, and then, do this and be able to be the big, the big provider of Spanish immersion because they have the funding to do that. And so really, it's kind of how they talk about being the first one, is so important. And so to do that, you have to grow fast. And we can grow. We're still growing through corporate growth, but franchising allows us to partner with entrepreneurs to bring our concept to their market where they're an expert in their market, and just helps us grow faster. And so that was really a driver of making sure, like, one, I felt good about the model and the brand being carried on, and then two, helping us grow so that we really cement our place as the Spanish immersion childcare provider in the US.
Great. I love the value proposition and the differentiator there. And, I'm just thinking about in our area here in the Baltimore area, some of the childcare providers, the ones with the big, bold, beautiful letters and, like you said, decorative centers, none of them own their buildings. They all lease. And, that's a big thing for entrepreneurs and for those that of your, team or yourself that wants to grow that wealth, which is so important. So as you were looking at your standard operating procedure, how did you document all of that to go from that to franchise? Let's just speak a little bit about that, because I get that question so much, Kristen, about like, well, how do I make sure that it's standardized, right? So what did that look like for you?
Oh man, that is a lot of work. And it is, and that I will say is probably my number one regret in starting a business, is not doing a better job of that from day one. Is when you start, it sounds silly, but everything you do as an entrepreneur, you really should document. I mean, really, like, okay, you just accepted a payment, but how did you do that? How did you enter it? How did you code it? Because if you don't do that, all that is just in your head. And when you hire somebody, it makes it so much harder for them to onboard and train, because they don't know. And then it takes your time, so much more of your time. So it was a team effort, because for me, we have so many. I mean, I'm talking like 1,000 pages. I mean, we have
I can only imagine
so many things documented, because it's more than just, how do you sanitize toys? It's how to put together the quiet kit for preschoolers that don't nap, and the fact that we use quiet kit. There's just so much into it. And so it really was a partnership with a lot of staff that, own different areas. And then we had reviewers, and then, we made sure we had photos, and it was a long process. And even now we're still like updating, tweaking, because, we'll be like, oh, there was a question that came up. We should have, we didn't spell that out clear enough. So let's update that so that's even more clear. Right. Because with SOP is you really can't get more detailed, especially when it comes to franchising. You want to have your high level where you document the bullet point, the most important to simplify, but for SOPs and franchising, when you're training, like for example, our teachers, we have a manual for each age group where it talks about, how you put an infant down in the crib. You always put them on your back. When do you not have to turn them over? I mean, because if an infant is, say 2 months old and turns over, you have to put them back on their back. But if they're, a year old, you don't. And so like all those things, having documentation and manuals for them so that you can train on them, it's just a huge process. And really it's, partnering with lots of staff, starting with a very high level, because I think when you have a project that big, you really need to break it out into chunks and chunks and chunks, into little pieces. And then I'm a big fan of time blocking it out. And so say you're going to do the SOP for your infant classroom. Well, to start, I would have somebody that maybe has never worked in it. If you don't have anything at all, go in and watch them during the day and just bullet point what they see and don't know, and then you have your bullet points and you look at it, and you have your experts look at it too. And then you take one piece of it. Okay, early morning drop off. There's one small segment of time. Well, where does that happen? Does it happen in the classroom, or are they combined? How do you greet a family? What do you make sure you have from them? There's so many pieces of it. And so then you take one piece of that. So greeting a family member, and that is one piece that goes into a bigger thing, but you really have to break it down. Otherwise it just feels very overwhelming, because there's so many things.
Absolutely. And, your kind of corporate structure is like, I can visualize it right now, because I'm sure it's so different just in the past year, right? Do you have someone who's just in charge of all of those updates, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Well, up until really 2 years ago, we didn't have corporate staff. I didn't have corporate staff. How I created Tierra, because I had these other businesses and I saw how much they needed me still, and I really wanted something that didn't need me. Like it didn't need me. Like I could do what I loved, which is more of like the growth and strategy. And so I structured it. That's, I guess, something that's unique about us too, is so our centers, a lot of centers, they'll have a director, but the director will also like teach in a classroom. But our staffing model is we have a director and an assistant director who do not teach in the classroom, but we also have float teachers. So we'll have, anywhere from 3 to 6 float teachers that are there because we offer all this paid leave and they help in the classrooms, people are sick out. And then we have cooks too, because we have a commercial kitchen at every single center. And so the cooks will help cover like a break. And so because we have all the structure in place, it really helps with the time. And I haven't needed the corporate staff though because of that. So they run the center. They're like the little business manager of that location. And so when I decided to franchise, I knew if I'm going to franchise, I want to do this right. I want to make sure that people that we partner with have the support they need. I don't want to, a lot of people when they decide to franchise, they just don't have maybe the cash flow, aren't able to invest in having a lot of staff to help with that, so they rely a lot on the people that are already in their centers. And so I really wanted to provide the best possible start and set them up for success.
Yeah.
And so that was when I decided, okay, I need to have corporate staff. So right away started hiring staff. And in the last 2 years now, we've hired almost 30 corporate staff. So we have, our operations team is definitely the biggest. I mean, we have a full-time nutritionist that's in charge of our culinary program. We have our district managers and our director of operations. And, we have a lot of different staff that help with different pieces of it that help, our franchisees make sure every question they have is answered. And they're really experts to help with that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Are you having fun? Are you loving this?
Yeah, it's definitely busy.
I know, right? We were just talking about that before we started. Like, how is it November already? My goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. This is so good. You are just so tenacious and so kind. And you can just tell that you just radiate warmth. So I can only imagine how your centers, I haven't been to one on site, but I'm just visualizing them to sound amazing.
Thanks.
So before we hop off here, because I know your time is precious and I'm so grateful that you've been here, tell us a quote or a little mini mantra that comes to mind when you're having those moments, where you need maybe doubt, fear, anxiety, whatever, need a little pep in your step. What's your go-to phrase?
I think one thing that I've definitely learned over the last year or so is a favorite quote is, don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. And so I think a lot of people that happens, they'll have invested a lot of time in something, or maybe a lot of time training somebody, or, something like that. And they don't want to, cut their losses because they've invested so much. But if it's a mistake, it's a mistake, regardless of how much time you put into it. And if it's hindering your growth or your happiness, clinging to it is only going to put off achieving that longer. And so that's definitely something that I've learned in the last year, and something that I try to keep in mind too moving forward.
That is really good. And I've never actually heard that before, and I really like it. I got a little bit of chills there, Kristen. Okay, so how can we find you? How can we support you? How can we spread the word about franchising? I'm assuming you're going national with this. Like, how can we support you here?
Yeah, so tierraencantada.com and franchise.tierraencantada.com. I mean, just telling people about our centers, if you know people that are looking to start their own business, that are really excited about something that's very, very recession resistant. And then I would say also, I actually wrote a children's book that helps parents get rid of the elf on the shelf. And so it's called An Elf's Journey Home. And so that too, if any parent wants to have a fun holiday story and not have to do the elf on the shelf anymore, than that.
My goodness, you have to tell me quickly what sparked this. How old are your kids?
So I have a 4th and 6th grader, 11 and 10, and we've been doing elf on the shelf. And last year, I was so sick of it. And I Googled trying to find a book so that I could kind of, because how can you end it without bursting the bubble of Santa, because if you're like, I lied about this, it would seem a little weird that, but I didn't lie about that one, and so Googled, couldn't find anything. Nothing exists. Literally, like even now, I don't think anybody in the last year has written anything, but there is nothing that provides a graceful explanation for it not having to happen anymore. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do this. And yeah, it rhymes. It's geared towards, kids. You read it with your kids. And essentially at the end, the kids get to keep the elf. They get to choose if they want to keep the elf forever. And it's funny, my son, I got it and my son read it and he's like, runs up to me, he's like, I didn't know the elf could stay with us forever. I'm like, yes, it can.
It's really cute. My boys are 9 and 11. So I'm right there with you. And yeah, we need to have some big conversations around the elf and Santa. So like, is it on Amazon?
Yes. Yeah. Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble. Yes. Yeah. It just was released.
Now. You are such a doer and an implementer. I love that.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, you were simply amazing. Thank you for spending time with us today. And we will definitely be sure to follow your journey and let us know how we can support you. You are amazing. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye.
Wow, what an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@ievolveconsulting.com. Hit subscribe, and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve. So please let me know what you need, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care until next time.